yeah, everybody's like, it's getting cutthroat out here. People are robbing each other, stealing from one another. You know, instead of helping each other out, we're doing the exact opposite and kicking somebody when they're down, just like us.
I don't think it takes a whole lot.
Hold on the doors, man. Let's do that shit. Get out of here.
Drove by me. I was sitting at the bus stop eating pizza, and he started calling me a whore and a bitch, and I said I didn't even know it was him. And it hurt me so bad that when I ran into you to do the video, I wanted to lie about everything. I didn't want, just in case, you know, if he saw it or somebody else in my family, I didn't want them to really know the full.
America, the land that promises endless opportunities and remarkable prosperity, shines as a beacon of hope for many. Yet behind that dazzling image, countless stories of struggle and hardship remain unseen, hidden in plain sight. I, someone who has witnessed far too many harsh winters, cannot remain silent in the face of this uncomfortable truth. Why are women often the ones caring for young children left abandoned on the streets, exposed to danger and stripped of their basic dignity? Homelessness among women isn't simply about not having a roof over one's head. It's a glaring reflection of systemic failures that continue to overlook society's most vulnerable. We see the statistics, but do we truly comprehend the human toll they represent? Many women end up homeless in America because they are fleeing abuse, struggling with poverty, or grappling with addiction, often without the support they need to reclaim their lives. How can we allow this quiet crisis to continue unchecked? Looking at these realities, it becomes clear that solutions must go beyond housing. What's most essential is recognizing their human dignity. Why, in a country celebrated as the land of opportunity, do we let these women who form 85% of homeless households with children endure such indignity? This is not just a housing crisis. It's a glaring divide of gender inequality, where wage gaps, domestic violence, and societal neglect push women into the shadows. This essay will dive into the stark statistics, reveal the faces behind the numbers. From young mothers to isolated veterans, analyze the root causes from skyrocketing housing costs to the collapse of post-COVID support systems, and outline practical solutions, not just empty promises. But first ask yourself, if it were your wife, your mother, or your daughter, could you just stand by? We start with this truth because only by facing it can meaningful change take root. Alarming numbers and forces driving women into homelessness. The 2024 report from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development shows that 480 people were experiencing homelessness on a single night in January, marking an 18% rise from 2023. Women represent roughly 38% of that total, about 308,000 people. despite making up half of the adult population. To me, this imbalance highlights serious gaps in support for families. A staggering 85% of these women are single mothers, with children under 18 far outpacing fathers. Many come from Black, Indigenous, Asian, or multiracial communities, where homelessness is most concentrated, particularly among those aged 25 to 40. This rise is no accident. It stems from overlapping pressures. Since 2020, the number of women experiencing homelessness in America has surged 35%, fueled by soaring housing costs, evictions, and the end of COVID-19 relief programs. As a result, over 150,000 children are now living on the streets with their mothers. Domestic violence accounts for 21% of the pathways to homelessness, disproportionately affecting young women. We cannot ignore the psychological dimensions either. Mental health challenges and substance abuse significantly increase vulnerability, making it harder to escape this cycle. Conditions like depression and anxiety, coupled with the rise of drugs such as fentanyl, intensify the crisis of women who are homeless in America, leaving many trapped with few options for escape. The reality is stark beyond safe shelter. These women desperately need mental health care, addiction support, and medical resources to rebuild their lives. Forgotten women's stories behind the numbers. Let's hear the voices of women living homeless in America, their stories of survival, and the daily battles they face, alongside the hope they cling to for a better life. Serenity, a 20-year-old pregnant woman living on the streets of San Diego, shares her struggles. Even while staying clean and sober, finding a shelter is nearly impossible, as most won't accept pregnant women due to space and safety issues. She also voices frustration at authorities who, she says, ignore her pleas for help. Serenity describes the constant stress of protecting her belongings, knowing there is no one she can trust to watch them.
But we catch on, you know, and they, like, we see they don't want to take me because I'm pregnant, because I'm a liability, and if anything were to happen to me, like, that's on them. And then because I'm pregnant, it's more money out of their pockets, you know. And they just still weren't able to help me at all whatsoever. And it's been maybe about 4 to 5 weeks, maybe 6 now. I don't really count anymore because it's just like it just frustrates me more if I think about it.
She recounts coming back to find her tent ransacked and personal items stolen. Though pregnant, she relies on smoking to stave off withdrawal symptoms, refusing injection, and she wishes the public recognized homeless people as human, not as threats or criminals. Serenity hopes to share her story to help young people avoid the path she has taken. Devin, 28, living in Kensington, Philadelphia, has been homeless in America for nearly 8 years and struggles with addiction primarily to heroin and fentanyl.
She wasn't here, and I came back and all of my stuff was tossed up. My whole tent is messed up. It's ripped literally from the zipper. I can't even close it. There's holes in the floor. All my blankets are dirty. All my clothes were thrown everywhere, and like some of my stuff is missing. And my other neighbor on the other side of me tried to blame the police on it. And I know it's not the police. The police are not going to come inside my tent like that.
She explains that life on the streets is easier than dealing with family problems, and she spends about $100 daily on drugs, often turning to sex work just to survive.
You know, we're human. We're human, and we all have things we go through too. And just because we're out here doesn't make us less of a person. So I hope people realize that.
Devon admits this work strips her of self-respect but sees it as necessary to stay alive. She shares the constant fear and danger of using drugs publicly, often needing to hide while using. Devon has survived over 30 overdose episodes but still faces the constant threat of death, knowing her current life cannot continue. Despite this, she hopes to break free from drugs and eventually start a recovery program. Her dream is to guide young women to recognize their worth and avoid the same destructive path she has walked. The core causes behind their struggle. Women who are homeless in America are far more than numbers. They are mothers, daughters, caregivers, and individuals whose lives have been repeatedly overlooked by a society that often pretends their struggles don't exist. Each of these women carries a story, a history of sacrifice, endurance, and often trauma that remains unseen in the statistics. One of the most pressing forces driving them to the streets is domestic violence, which accounts for roughly 21% of cases among homeless women. For many, leaving an abusive relationship is not just a question of safety, it is a survival imperative. Yet for these women, safety often comes with an unbearable cost: no home, no security, no stability. They face the impossible choice of remaining in a cycle of violence or stepping into the harsh unknown of homelessness. This is not merely a lack of housing. It is a devastating erosion of mental health, physical security, and self-worth. Without a place to feel safe, the outside world becomes an unrelenting battlefield where every day presents a new challenge, a new threat. The ongoing housing crisis in America compounds this vulnerability. Affordable housing is in dangerously short supply, and rising rents make it nearly impossible for single mothers and low-income women to secure safe, stable living arrangements. It is a bitter irony that women who work tirelessly to care for their families, who contribute to communities, are forced into instability simply because the market has priced them out of survival. How can society sit idly by while a mother must choose between exposing her child to danger or living on the streets herself? The weight of childcare, household management, and protection of their families rests solely on their shoulders, yet resources to support them remain woefully insufficient. Shelters are often overcrowded, social programs underfunded, and systemic assistance fragmented. Economic inequality further exacerbates the crisis. The gender wage gap means that women earn less than men for the same work, leaving them unable to cover basic expenses such as rent, utilities, food, healthcare, and childcare. For many, even a steady job is not enough to provide security. A small emergency, a car repair, medical bill, or sudden loss of income can push them over the edge into homelessness. And then came the rollback of COVID-19 support programs, which had briefly offered a lifeline. With eviction moratoriums lifted and assistance programs reduced, women who were already teetering on the edge found themselves fully exposed to the pressures of a system that too often fails them. Beyond economics, the psychological toll cannot be overstated. Homelessness brings anxiety, depression, and a profound sense of isolation. Women navigating these hardships often face additional layers of discrimination due to race, age, or immigrant status, magnifying the obstacles in their path. Homeless women in America are forced not only to survive, but to navigate a society that stigmatizes them, making it even harder to access resources, healthcare, and employment opportunities. They live with constant uncertainty, their dignity stripped away, while carrying the immense responsibility of raising children or supporting extended family. This is more than a housing problem. It is a crisis of human rights, social justice, and moral accountability. The question is not whether these women deserve better, they do, but whether a society that calls itself prosperous and just will finally act to ensure that no woman must choose between safety and shelter. Barriers and brutal realities facing homeless women. Peeling back the surface, the lives of women who are homeless in America reveals silent endurance and hardship often overlooked by the broader society. HUD's 2024 report shows women make up nearly 40% of the homeless population, yet the majority lack safe and stable shelter. Many are in their prime adult years, shouldering the responsibility of raising children without a reliable safety net. Single mothers are disproportionately affected, leaving nearly 150,000 children living in uncertainty and instability. Racial disparities intensify the crisis. Black, Latinx, and Indigenous women are overrepresented among those forced to the margins. Over 100,000 women experience chronic homelessness, facing not only harsh weather but illness, disability, and neglect from a society that turns a blind eye. Behind these cold statistics are weary, struggling lives. We talk about equality, yet is it truly fair when these women endure silent battles that go unnoticed? Their daily reality is brutal. Safety erodes first. Women on the streets are prime targets for violence, with assaults both physical and sexual prevalent, and 1 in 4 fleeing abusive partners. Domestic abuse drives 21% of these escapes, yet shelters for mothers and children remain woefully inadequate, with beds scarce against a tide of demand. Healthcare is another gaping wound. 57% lack regular medical care, postponing treatment until crises erupt. Mental trauma, chronic illness, skipped prenatal care, and struggles to meet basic hygiene needs all intensify the hardship alongside addiction and disease. Support systems are threadbare. Counseling, employment assistance, reproductive care, and other services are rationed and often biased, with women of color facing extra barriers. The cycle is vicious. Deaths rise quietly from preventable causes. Just imagine what difference a single well-funded women-led shelter could make in breaking this trap. Ultimately, the problem is clear: our safety nets fail women. Society continually neglects their struggle, leaving them to navigate streets without adequate protection. Each barrier, each daily challenge, is not an accident of fate. It's a call for stronger support, for safe spaces that restore dignity, not merely cover the sidewalks. Solutions and policies to support homeless women, building a path to reintegration and restoring lives. Tackling the issue of women who are homeless in America demands a comprehensive set of policies and support systems that can produce real, lasting change. This isn't just a question of providing shelter, it's deeply intertwined with the social, economic, and psychological challenges these women face every day. While current programs have made some progress, they are far from sufficient to address the root causes of homelessness among women. Existing solutions have made dents, but clearly they are not robust enough to reverse the trend entirely. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has expanded the number of shelter beds by 13%, and the HUD-VASH program has reduced veteran homelessness by 8%. These are vital steps, but they're only the beginning. Adding 435,000 affordable rental units by the third quarter of 2024 is promising, but will it meet the growing demand? How can we ensure that homeless women, particularly survivors of domestic violence, actually gain access to these homes? Policies must dig deeper into the root causes. First, permanent housing programs for women and children need to be prioritized, offering more than temporary shelter, safe, stable homes that provide long-term security. Support for domestic violence survivors should be a core part of policy, including mental health services, legal aid, and life skills education to help women escape cycles of abuse and poverty. Education and employment opportunities are equally critical. Homeless women with children need skills to sustain themselves and provide for their families. Programs teaching technology, vocational skills, or entrepreneurship could help break the cycle of poverty and ensure a sustainable future. Nonprofit organizations also play a crucial role. Groups like the National Alliance to End Homelessness offer shelters, psychological support, and educational resources. But are these organizations resourced enough to meet the ever-growing need? Ending homelessness among women requires a holistic approach. Progress has been made, yet rates continue to rise, signaling the need for stronger, bolder action. If we don't act now, can we realistically curb the 18% annual increase? Can we envision a society where every woman has the chance to rebuild her life without fear of insecurity or deprivation? We must confront this truth. Why, in a nation as wealthy as the US, do we allow women who contribute so much to families, communities, and the country to live homeless? And what concrete steps must we take to change that? Solutions extend beyond policy. They demand a shift in societal attitudes toward women who have already endured so much. Shadows of the Forgotten, a quiet call to reclaim the American dream. As we close this deep dive into the crisis of women who are homeless in America, the numbers strike with a force that is hard to ignore. Over 300 to 500 women mothers, veterans, survivors, adrift in a nation of abundance, with figures rising a staggering 35% since 2020. These aren't just numbers on a page. They are real lives fractured by domestic violence, economic hardship, and the crushing weight of systemic neglect. They are families torn apart by circumstances no one should face, paychecks swallowed whole by skyrocketing rents, and dreams deferred under the relentless pressure of survival. Each statistic represents someone's mother, daughter, or sister people who have contributed to society yet find themselves left behind. Yet even amid this bleak reality, there are sparks of hope. Targeted investments like HUD's expansion of permanent housing and specialized support for survivors of abuse demonstrate that thoughtful, consistent action can make a measurable difference. Programs aimed at safe housing, mental health services, and vocational training provide lifelines that can restore stability and dignity to those who have long been ignored. These initiatives prove that change is possible when resources are directed strategically and when policy is informed by the realities of those living homeless in America. But let's be clear, this is not merely a personal tragedy. It is a glaring indictment of systemic failure. Over decades of observing this country, I have come to understand that ignoring women's homelessness is not an accidental oversight. It is a blind spot embedded within the so-called American Dream one that undermines gender equity and slows progress for society as a whole. How else can we explain that Black and Indigenous women, already burdened by generations of systemic inequities, disproportionately bear the weight of this crisis? What legacy are we leaving if we allow half the population, those who nurture families, contribute labor, and enrich communities, to slip through the cracks? Reflecting on these stories of resilience in the face of devastation, we are forced to question whether our cultural obsession with pulling yourself up by the bootstraps actually obstructs real change. Too often we place the burden solely on the individual while ignoring the structural barriers that push women into homelessness in the first place. So where do we go from here? Urgently to the ballot box, to volunteer at shelters, to participate in neighborhood programs, to advocate for policies that address housing affordability, healthcare access, and equitable wages. Speak up in your circles, donate time or resources, or even just listen to the stories of those who have been pushed to society's margins. What if each of us contributed a fraction of compassion, effort, or awareness? America is not defined by its failures, but by how fiercely its people respond to injustice. From the HUD data staring us down, one truth is undeniable: with decisive action, advocacy, and collective will, those cold numbers can transform into stories of homecoming resilience and restored dignity. Compassion, not complacency, is the strength that can reclaim the promise of the American dream for women who have endured far too much for far too long.